And no, you can't sleep with them.
Oh, thank God.
What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the unbelievably unflappable Dr. Disaster, and the comments from the bozos over at Obsidian late last year after people called them out for their use of their pronoun system in Avowed. Those comments were about as stupid as you can imagine, telling people that they basically didn't want folks who aren't in their progressive echo chambers to be their customers.
How's that working out for you? What? Being clever? Great. Keep it up then.
Obsidian decided to pander to the they-them crowd with Avowed, having players choose their pronouns irrespective of the sex of their character, which just completely takes a player out of that fantasy setting. At first, this game was being bragged about as the Elder Scrolls killer by Obsidian and their game journalist buddies, but after wading into that controversy, Obsidian had to watch as Avowed couldn't even hit 20,000 concurrent players on Steam.
Congratulations, you're a failure.
Over on VG Analytics, the game is estimated to have sold a little over 300,000 units on Steam. That number is likely even less for Xbox. The game was an absolute flop of the highest order, and now, with their next game, Outer Worlds 2, set to release in about a month, it looks like history is about to repeat itself with another Obsidian game this year.
Oh no! We suck again!
Outer Worlds 2, over on Steam, still has not managed to crack the top 500 best-selling games on the platform. Think about how big this studio was a decade or so ago, right after the release of Fallout New Vegas, and after having made KOTOR 2 several years before that. Now, when they tongue-in-cheek tell us in their recent trailer for Outer Worlds 2 that you can't sleep with any of the companions, people are thanking their higher power for that fact. The sales numbers for Outer Worlds, based on the information that I have on hand from retail stores, is positively brutal. Obsidian is simply a fallen studio.
I've reached the top!
Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? I've had a lot of people, though, tell me recently that they have been unwillingly unsubscribed to the channel, so make sure that you check into that, and there's been a lot of talk about restricted mode being automatically enabled for a lot of users on YouTube, which would cut you off from a lot of your favorite channels. So don't forget to check into that as well, and turn it off if it has been turned on and you don't want it. But alright, let's talk about Outer Worlds 2 and their shitty sales numbers. Now, first of all, a couple of things to note about this game. There is technically a physical copy for the Xbox version of this game, but it's pretty much just a digital code in a box. And when we discuss the retail sales numbers for this game, keep in mind that apparently virtually nobody is buying the Xbox version of the game. There is a physical disc for the PS5 version of the game, however, and that is where the majority of these sales numbers come from. Also, keep in mind that Outer Worlds 2 is going to be a Day 1 Game Pass release. Now, what this means to some people out there is that Obsidian is now immune to all criticism for their low sales numbers. Some folks have it in their heads that being on Game Pass is a blanket excuse for a game to not sell any copies, though there are plenty of recent releases which show that this is simply not the case. For example, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 was a Day 1 Game Pass release earlier this year, and it sold a few million copies in its first few days, despite being on Game Pass Day 1 and being a game from an unknown AA studio. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered release has similarly sold millions of copies despite being practically shadow dropped when it came out. Last fall, Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl, sold 1 million copies in just a few days. Those were all Game Pass Day 1 games, and they sold well. You will notice that those games were largely considered to be free of culture war controversy in them though, and that is what made them sell millions of copies. They were just games made for gamers, and people buy stuff like that. Meanwhile, whenever a Day 1 title on Game Pass comes out that is definitively woke, then the game journalists and their comrades have to come out and defend the game, explaining that Game Pass games simply don't have anyone ever buying them, ever. They made that excuse for Avowed, they made it for South of Midnight, and they will almost certainly make that excuse for Outer Worlds 2 when it comes out in a month. But don't let them fool you. Certainly, Game Pass will cut into the total sales numbers of a game, but if a game is popular and actually enjoyed, gamers will buy it. Game Pass is functionally just a rental, and renting games has been an option for decades, and it has not prevented popular games from selling millions of copies. But with all that said, let's talk about these numbers for Outer Worlds 2 from retail stores. For anyone out there who isn't aware, I used to own a store where we sold video games, and I still have contact with folks who run and have access to the sales data of nearly 50 stores between them, and those people send me data when I ask about the pre-order numbers of specific games so that we can track how certain games are trending compared to their contemporaries. For example, when Star Wars Outlaws came out last year, I was able to successfully predict that it was going to be a flop despite game journalists telling us that it was just the best game ever. That game, when it was a month removed from its release, had sold 53 copies in these nearly 50 stores, and Avowed, which admittedly was only being released on Xbox, and that release was similar to Outer Worlds 2, it was a box with a digital code inside, but anyhow, Avowed, when it was a month away from release, was at only 15 copies sold in those same retail stores. Outer Worlds 2 is not doing much better at this stage, with only 26 copies sold in these retail stores, with most copies going to PS5 users because let's face it, most folks, if they want a digital copy of a game, they will just buy it on the Xbox store. So there is a slight uptick in sold units for Outer Worlds 2 versus Avowed, but that is pretty easily attributable to the fact that more consoles have it available for purchase. Now, for context, when Space Marine 2 was about a month from its release last year, that game had already sold 152 copies in these same retail stores. That game ended up selling quite well on the market across the board, so that gives you an idea the kind of numbers that games should be shooting for in these retail stores. But there are other factors which indicate that Outer Worlds 2 is on pace for a brutal release. Back in July, they dropped the price of this game from $80 down to $70, which is a pretty surefire sign that there weren't people pre-ordering it at that original price. To top it off, these numbers on Steam here are actually looking significantly worse than what we saw with Avowed. That game, Avowed, had somewhere around 50,000 followers when it launched, and as you can see, Outer Worlds is pretty damn far from that number, and I doubt that they will hit that same follower count in the month to go between now and when it releases. Meanwhile, Outer Worlds, their last big trailer, was from last month's Gamescom, where they showed off their companions, and it was crushed by people making fun of their character designs by a ratio on this trailer of damn near 5-1. Like this guy said in the comment section of the trailer, quoting the last line of it, "And no, you can't sleep with them, dude. I don't even want them in my party." The only good thing that Outer Worlds seems to have going for it is the social media discipline that Obsidian has displayed ever since that outburst a few months before Avowed came out. I have perused the accounts of Obsidian employees on their social media, especially after the Charlie Kirk thing happened a few weeks ago, and they have basically kept their mouths shut over at Obsidian ever since last December or so. If you have any doubts as to how much that social media controversy hurt Obsidian sales numbers, look no further than the fact that these loudmouth, progressive shitheads are now as silent as the grave. But yeah, that's about the only thing they have going for them, and from the looks of things, that is not going to translate into big sales numbers. Too much damage has been done. But I'm gonna leave it there. Drop your mockery of Obsidian and Outer Worlds 2 into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.